Hello, my name is Robert Hart, and I'm speaking for the Coalition for Private Rights. And today what we're going to talk about is the proposed ordinance on the people of Three Rivers to get permits to run Airbnb. We had a town hall meeting on July 24th up in Three Rivers, and they gave us this document here, and I just want to read the very first. The intent was to establish a reasonable and uniform regulations for the use of privately owned residential dwellings as short-term rentals to minimize the negative secondary effects on surrounding properties and to ensure the health and safety of occupants, guests, and the surrounding residential neighborhood. So what they want you to, the private people to do, is get administrative permits to run Airbnb. As right now, as it is at this time, people can do basically whatever they want. What they're proposing is that you jump through a myriad of hoops. They want you to have signs all over the place, signs all over the property. It goes on and on. We will put this on the website so you can read it. That's neither here nor there. I also want to mention that I am the author of a book called Citizen Slave. Citizen Slave gives you an overall view of what your rights and your liberties are, and an overall understanding of law. So it's Citizen Slave, Understanding Law and Liberty. Now, I'm going to get to the main points of this. The people who run Airbnb, the private people, they are under no obligations to deal with any government agency. I want to read to you two maxims of the law. The power which is derived cannot be greater than that from which it is derived. And there is another one. One cannot transfer to another a right which he has not. Now here's the point. I don't have the right to force an obligation on you. And you don't have a right to force an obligation on me. And we don't have a right to go force an obligation on anybody else. Now, if we created the government, where did the government come up with the right to force private people to acquire a permit to run their Airbnb business? Because it's on private land, private people. The Airbnb people don't even get money from the host. They get their money from Airbnb. So, but that's neither here nor there. The point is, the government does not have the right to force the people to acquire a permit to run their private enterprise. Where did they get it? If the Board of Supervisors, the Board of Supervisors who is putting together this proposed ordinance, if they had the authority to force people to get a permit and punish them if they don't comply, where did they get that authority? And that authority would have to be written down. And there's a maximum of law that states that anytime a jurisdiction is challenged, that jurisdiction must prove its authority. So what we're going to end up doing is going to the Board of Supervisors and demanding that they prove that they have the authority to force the private people of Three Rivers and Tulare County to get a permit, which essentially sucks you right into commercial jurisdiction. I'm going to tell you how this normally works. The way they normally do it is they intimidate the people. Most people don't understand law. They don't understand what their rights are. They don't understand anything. And if somebody says, "Oh, it's a law," they snap to attention and they go, "Oh, it's a law. We have to abide by this law." That's not true. The reason why people capitulate is because they don't understand what they're doing and they're being threatened. Now, if everyone understood that the County Board of Supervisors has to have written authority to force you to have a permit, then it would all change. And that's what this video is all about. This video is about educating you to ask any government agency that's trying to force an obligation on you for their proof, their written authority that they have a right to force that obligation on you. Now, I can tell you this. I've read this entire short-term residential rental ordinance proposed, and they could actually kick you out of your house. And they'd have a right to do that because you decided to get the permit. What the people of Three Rivers need to understand is that you're under no obligation to get a permit. You're under no obligation to pay the tax. Tulare County extorts a 10% tax right off of the top of however much you're renting your room out for. And they call it an occupancy tax. Now that's right off of the gross. By the time you get done with your cleaning and all of the expenses on your home and everything involved with running the Airbnb, that 10% could actually be 40 or 50% of your actual net. And guess what? The government doesn't do anything for you. It's a one-sided contract where you give them everything and they give you nothing but a hassle. They can ride you hard as much as they want. And there's nothing you can do about it because you volunteered. Now this is important. The people have to understand that the way the tyrants throughout history have oppressed the people is because they have convinced them that somehow they have the authority to force the obligation on them. And it is almost the people capitulate out of habit because they want to be a good citizen, or they don't want to get in trouble, or whatever it may be. But all they're doing is getting themselves in trouble and paying money for nothing. There's another maxim of law that states that there should be considerations on both sides of the contract. Well, where's the consideration on the occupancy tax? You just give them money, you don't get anything except the hassle. So that's what we're here to stop. We're going to prove that the Board of Supervisors doesn't have a written authority to force the private people of Three Rivers or Tulare County to acquire a permit to operate their Airbnb. And if they don't provide the proof and they still try to force the people, then we're going to file a federal lawsuit to force them to prove their claim. If they can't prove their claim, they don't have a claim. That's just the law. And I want you to realize that there are two different types of law. There's common law and there's statutory law, or positive law is what they call it. Positive law is all of the enacted rules and regulations in the government. What a law actually is something that actually can force you to comply. In other words, like there are many maxims of law that say, okay, you can't kill anybody. Everybody knows that. You can't force an obligation on a person with impunity. That's basically the fundamental law of social interaction. You cannot force an obligation upon an individual or anyone with impunity. That means you can't break their leg. That means you can't kill them. That means you can't steal their property. That means you can't force them into a contract. But people don't know this, so they comply. And if you don't think that that's true, I want you to look at the people of Europe. All of the people of Europe, almost all of them, and I talk to many, many people from Europe because I run an Airbnb. All of them believe that the government has the right to force all these obligations on them, take 50% of their money, because they'll give them free cable TV and pay for their first month's rent if they become unemployed. But you just have to look at how civilization has been mind controlled. That the whole thought of freedom is missing. People don't even know what freedom is. I've talked to people from Europe and say, just imagine if you could keep every bit of money that you earned. And they just almost gasped. They almost think like, oh, that would be something from another planet. There's many people here that would say the same thing. Keep everything that you make is yours. Imagine that. Well, that's a fundamental right. What the people are subject to are maxims of the law. And it would do you well to go into, let's say, Bovier's Law Dictionary, 1856 edition, where they have all the maxims of law at about 56 pages. And just read all the maxims of law. Some of them are hard to understand. But when you read all these maxims of law, you will start to understand what law and what your rights are. No legislative law pertains to you absent your consent. And that means that if you're in a business, let's say they want to say that you're a hotel motel operator to collect this tax. And they're using the hotel motel operator statute. Now, how is the hotel motel operator subject to those statutes? Well, because the hotel motel gets a license, gets a permit, operates it on property that's zoned commercially, and therefore they are under an adhesion contract to abide by the statutes that control hotel motel. The private people that are operating an Airbnb out of their house, it's on private land, they're private people, they don't have a permit, there's nothing in commercial activity that can force them to get a permit. But if they consent, whether they did it out of accident, because they didn't understand, under threat, whatever the reason might be, they volunteered. And if they consent, knowingly consent, then they're subject to the ordinance or subject to the tax. I'm here to tell you that you don't have to consent, that you have a right to force those county agencies to prove with documentation that they have a right to force you to get a permit and force you to pay a tax. So this will go on for a few months. We'll get back with you with further updates on how this is progressing. But I can tell you, with the first meeting with one of the Board of Supervisors, which I don't want to name at this point, but it's pretty clear that they don't have the authority, and they're just kind of fishing to see if they can get this ordinance on. I know that Santa Monica, I think they've banned Airbnb in Santa Monica County, or whatever county that is, or at least in the city of Santa Monica. There was nobody there to challenge jurisdiction. Nobody knew about challenging jurisdiction. Nobody asked, prove to me you have a right to tell me that I can't have somebody in my home, anybody I want, come into my home, even if they pay me money. Prove to me that you have a right to tell me I can't do that. Nobody asked that question. And that is the foothold of freedom. If you don't think that freedom is the most important thing in your life, then I'm sorry. You can go ahead and give it all away if you want. But you don't have the right to force the other people who really believe in freedom to give away their rights. You can give away all the money you want to the government, but you don't have the right to force other people to do it. Just like I don't have a right to force you to do anything, and you don't have a right to force me to do anything. We can do anything we want as long as we don't injure another person, violate the rights of another person. That's the law. That's the law of the land. So we'll get back to you here in a couple of weeks, and I'll have some more information available for you, and I think you'll find it very, very interesting. Signing off. Thank you.